Hey everybody, Fool's Fate. We're going to do a vlog. I've been recording bits and pieces as I read through the book on my phone, so trying a new experiment just to see how that works out. One day I'll get one of those DJI Osmo Pocket 3s, but for the time being I'm doing it on my phone. And yeah, so this was a buddy read that I did with a friend of mine called Ray, who loves to read. That's the name of her channel, Ray Loves to Read. So check out her vlog. She's way ahead of me. She got hers out over a week ago. And it was a very fun experience. It's the first time I've done an online read along with a friend. And yeah, it really enhanced the experience. We were sending clips back and forth, WhatsApp messages, voice memos, video clips, and trying to keep a pace with each other as we went. So it made it fun, and I hope we get to do it again, perhaps with the first book of Dragonhaven, maybe with a Murakami book. We'll see. Anyway, Ray, thank you. I know you're watching this, so thanks for making it such an awesome experience. Right, so if you haven't read Fool's Fate, it's going to be spoiler city, so look away. Don't watch this video, because obviously I've done it vlog style, which means I'm going through the plot and giving you my thoughts as I go. So you might want to wait till you've read the book and then come back. This is the third book of the Tawny Man trilogy, so I expect I'll be mentioning the first two, Fool's Errand and Golden Fool, as I go as well. I mean, I should know that because I've already recorded most of the clips. So yeah, I'm expecting to go through bits of those books as well. So even if, I mean, why would you be watching this if you hadn't read this? So if you're not up to date, yeah, why are you here? Right, so without any further ado, I'm going to kick over to the first of my clips, right? The 5th of January, and I've just read the first chapter of Fool's Fate. Boy oh boy, it's like putting on old slippers. I've got the audio going in my ears, so narrated by Nick Taylor. What a fantastic job he does. Absolutely brilliant, especially with the voice of Thick. So we've just spent some time with Thick, Chade and Dutiful in a training session. They've discussed a dragon, which they saw in a dream. Thick and Dutiful both shared the dream, and we believe it's Tintaglia. So the streams have been crossed. We've got the Farseer story and the live ships stories crossing over. In Golden Fool that happened. And Selden Vestrit appeared from Bingtown and told them all of Tintaglia. So we're wondering whether Tintaglia and the dragons have the skill. And we also had a scene with Fitz, a training session with Burrick's son, Swift. So apparently he's skilled at the bow, he's witted, and he's a good horseman, he told us. He's 10 years old and he's got the build to be a good axeman, which is what Fitz was going to train him in. Still might, I don't know. But Swift was not pleased to hear about how he was going to be trained as an axeman. He'd rather be trained in the bow. So, who do we know that's skilled with the bow? Starling. So is she going to come back? Interesting question. And they're heading off to Aslavjal very soon, where Dutiful has to slay a dragon that's encased in ice. A dragon called Icefire. And in the dream that Dutiful and thick shared, Tintaglia asked about the Black Dragon, which is Icefire. So, interesting start, but what strikes me is just how comforting it is. It's such a cosy read. These characters, you know, the writing style, the relationships, it's just such a comfort to me, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm also struck by how much I enjoyed Golden Fool, hearing Nick Taylor's voice again and getting back to those characters. Reminds me of all the time I spent driving and listening to those books. So there'll be more of that coming in January and February. Well, January, I'm hoping to read it all in January, so I've got more trips booked. So, yeah. Right, that's my short update at the end of chapter 1. Hey, I haven't done this in a while. Dog walk video. Freezing cold as well. There's Clovey. So, yeah, I've read chapters 2 and 3 of... what's the book called again? Fool's Fate. And boy oh boy, I'm enjoying it so much. So, first of all, chapter 2, we had a scene where Fitz is having to train Burrick's son. What was his name? Swift. Bloody hell, honestly, my memory, this is an illustration of what I'm just about to talk about. He introduces himself as swift-witted. And Fitz is like that. I don't think you should be broadcasting your wit. Even though Ketrican has said, Ketrican, as I'm learning from Nick Taylor's audiobook, Ketrican's policy that the witted should not be persecuted is all well and good, but that doesn't really transfer down to grassroots level, because people's feeling about the witted runs deep. So he shouldn't really be introducing himself as that. However, he then goes to talk to Webb, and he wants to ask for some advice from Webb. And this is what I'm talking about with my memory. I was like, who's Webb? So I texted my buddy, Ray. I was like, is this a new character? She's like, what? No. Do you not remember Webb from like Golden Fool when they had the big convocation? He was the witted guy that... I was like, no. So this morning I actually went back and downloaded the book into Libby so that I could do a search on the word Webb. By the way, Libby's excellent. This is my first book in Libby, first ebook, and yeah, it's really good. So I've got the audio book and I've got the physical, but that's the thing with physical, you can't search term. So I found the chapters that talked of Webb from Golden Fool, reread them, and then I was like, oh, of course I remember Webb. What am I on about? I'd just blanked on his name. But in rereading it, I was like, yeah, I remember now why I loved Golden Fool so much. and why it's useful to reread things. And so I'm enjoying that aspect of my reading journey. Instead of marching on to get the book read and tick the box and meet quotas and goals, I'm slowing down, I'm going back, I'm rereading to make sure I've understood, getting the most out of it. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased about that. So yeah, he goes to Webb and he says, what's the deal here? And it turns out Webb knows who Fitz is, by which I mean he's Fitz Chivalry, not Tom Badgerlock. And Fitz is like, oh, right, so that's a bit of a worry, potentially, for later on in the books. Then we've got chapter 3. There's a lot happens in chapter 3. The relationship between Fitz and the Fool, which, again, I went back and reread the final chapter of Golden Fool, where Fitz tries to fix the rift that had formed between Fitz and the Fool when Fitz had said some unkind things to him and they'd had that big fallout. So he kind of fixed it, but there's still a bit of tension between them. And we get more of that in chapter 3. And it's really interesting because at this point in the book you'll know that Fitz has basically betrayed the Fool by not allowing him to go on this impending mission to go and cut off the head of Icefire. So there's that underlying tension which keeps getting telegraphed, and we know that the Fool is oblivious of this because he's making plans. It's been prophesied that he's going to die. I mean, everybody dies, right? But he's going to die on this mission. So Fitz has decided not to allow him to go on the mission. And there's just a horrible undercurrent of betrayal, which I'm not enjoying, and I'm supposed to not enjoy it. I have to trust Robin Hobb that she's taken this somewhere good, because at the moment, you know, it's like deceptive, and it uses the word deception. It's just, it doesn't make me feel good, it makes me feel uncomfortable, and that's how I'm supposed to feel, I'm quite sure. But then they sit down in the tower at a skill training session with Thick and Chade and Dutiful, and the Fool is he's invited himself along basically, and so they go in. The Fool does some kind of weird skill connection with Fitz when they're training, and Fitz falls into this massive pool of, and he says it's maybe not even the skill, this could be something different. So to call it the skill is like comparing a spark to the sun. And it's like, what is this? Is this the place where Fitz is seeing Tintaglia, and Thick is seeing Tintaglia, and Dutiful is seeing Tintaglia in their dreams, you know? But then after that happens, Fitz is really worried that the connection's going to be so deep that basically he and the Fool are going to become one, which of course means that the Fool will then suddenly know that Fitz has betrayed him. So he pulls out of this connection abruptly, he breaks it and then falls to the floor, and it's so well done, it's incredibly well written. And then after that they leave, and Chade is left with the Fool and Fitz. I say they, I mean Thick and Dutiful leave. So they're left together, and we then learn that the Fool's instructions to Chade are that the dragon Icefire must not be killed. And he goes on to explain about Tintaglia and how she's the last remaining female dragon, and she needs a living male to keep the species going, and that there are bigger things in the world, that man is arrogant, that man draws these lines on maps and thinks that they possess things and that the world is theirs, and then, you know, at nature's peril, you know, at the planet's peril. So we've got a bit of that kind of political, I don't know how you would put it. When was this book written? 2003, I think. Could be wrong on that, I don't know. But yeah, climate change was almost certainly on the agenda at the time that Hobb was writing this book, so it's interesting that this has come up, and I wonder how far back she was thinking about this. You know, the idea that dragons, according to Chade, need to stay away because they're dangerous and they can, you know, they could destroy humankind. And the Fool's like, no, that's not how it should be. We should be doing what we can to keep the species going. So yeah, I find it very interesting from the political aspect as well. So that's chapters 2 and 3. I didn't expect to be talking for quite that long, but there you go. Looking forward to chapter 4. See you in a bit. I'm going to do a wee update on Fool's Fate as I drive to Lochranza at the north end of the Isle of Arran to catch a ferry. I'm going to Inverary today. I'm just about to dive into chapter 13, Aslivyal. So this is going to be spoiler city, so hopefully I've already warned you about that, so tune away. This is for those that have read it and want to have a conversation. So yeah, up till now it's been a riveting ride. I've been absolutely enjoying this book. What comes to mind first of all, what I would really like to learn in this book is about forging, what it meant in the Farseer trilogy, how it was done. In the Farseer trilogy there was a white figure that was alluded to on a couple of occasions, and that fascinates me. I'm really hoping we get to learn about that in this book. So that's one of my hopes. I was annoyed at the way that Fitz was taking decisions for the Fool on the Fool's behalf. I didn't like that, and I think we weren't supposed to like it. I just had to put my faith in Hobb that she was going to use this as an interesting part of the plot, and it appears that's what she's done, because just as the boat is arriving at Aslivyal, who's standing there on the island? Yeah, the Fool. So my buddy Ray that I'm reading this with, she called it. So well done, Ray. So yeah, that's something I'm intrigued to see, how this relationship now develops after Fitz really betraying him. You know, Fitz had decided that the Fool wasn't going to go because of a prophecy. Now we all know in fantasy books that prophecies can be, you know, interpreted in different ways, much like as I'm learning in the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. So I think for Fitz to have made that decision was just, you know, it was politically wrong, and we're going to get the repercussions of that now, because their relationship, let's just say, wasn't on solid ground anyway. And so now, you know, but the book is called Fitz and the Fool. No, rather the trilogy is called Fitz and the Fool. No, it isn't. That's the last trilogy, isn't it? Which I feel is a bit of a spoiler. And they should have perhaps called it something else. Anyway, it's called what it's called. So that's one thing. What I'm enjoying the most so far is, I think, the relationships. The fractured, tenuous, is that a word? Tense relationships between the characters as they go into this unknown territory. We're getting Chade, who's a completely different person to what he was in the Farseer trilogy. He seems almost petulant and egotistical, and I guess it's because he's jealous that he didn't get taught in the skill, and now that's having repercussions. I think in the Farseer trilogy, when he was hiding behind the walls and he was busy doing King Shrewd's bidding, then it didn't matter so much because he had a role to play. I mean, he still had a role to play, but he's finding himself now as part of a coterie, a skill coterie, and he's, you know, but he's learning, he's coming into it. So yeah, the relationships is the most fascinating thing about this trilogy, as in all the Hobb books. And then the other thing is the portrayal of Thick. Thick is neurodiverse. I had a chat with my buddy Ray about what she thinks the pathology might be, so I'll leave that for her to talk about if she wants to. For me, with autism in my family, I can see that, and in particular it's hitting home hard for me personally because of a situation we're dealing with at home, and it's where they were trying to get Thick onto the boat against his will, and how Fitz was struggling with that, and he wanted, you know, they actually did think about forcing him onto the boat because he did have to go on that trip. There's no way he could stay behind. But it didn't come to that. It was sorted out with the wit, which is very interesting because now we know that the wit has so much more to it than we thought through the character Webb, who's now no longer ironically called the Wit Master. At least the last time I saw that term, it wasn't in quotation marks. It seems that Fitz is Skill Master and Webb is Wit Master. So I'm looking forward to Fitz maybe learning more about the wit, and also to Dutiful perhaps superseding Fitz in his use of the wit. Because Dutiful has the skill as well, so he's like Fitz 2.0, which is just a fascinating character. So yeah, those are my thoughts up till now. I'm looking forward to listening to some more of it as I drive today, because I've got a bit of a drive now and then I've got a longer drive later on, so I will be listening to more of Fool's Fate. There you go, catch up with you in another few chapters time. See you later. Right, chapter 23. That's where I'm up to, so if you haven't read as far as that, look away now and come back when you have. Wow, what a ride it's been. So one of the things that really hooked me into the Farseer trilogy was the magic system. I made a video about it at the beginning of this channel, early on in this channel, where I explained the magic system and what it means to me, so you can go and check that out. But the way that Hobb has evolved that into this book is just, it's incredible. So we've got the wit and we've got the skill, right? Fitz has got both. There's always been a kind of distance between those two magic systems, but there's also been connections between them. We're getting to see bits of that in the way that Webb is using the wit. But now we've got a beast, we've got a dragon, we've got Icefire. Dragons have skill, but they are also beasts, which means that anyone who has both magics can employ both magics and go into a dragon. So we've seen glimpses of Tintaglia coming into Fitz's dreams, and into Nettle's dreams, and into Thick's dreams. But we haven't really seen much of the wit being used when it comes to dragons, but now we're getting that because Fitz has it, and as he's going down ostensibly to kill Icefire, he's getting glimpses of the dragon. The wit sense is tingling with dragon sense. So chapter 23 was just a standout chapter, you know. First of all, back a wee bit, we've got a reunion. Burrick comes back. He just kind of appears. It's like, hey, hi Burrick. He's in Aslovyal. So Fitz ends up with the Fool and the Pale Queen, or the Pale Lady, whatever she's called, in her ice lair. And when he gets out, escapes, there's Burrick. So it's a nice moment, and there's a really emotional scene where the two of them have a conversation. It's like... And of course we've got the Fool. You remember I said in a previous clip here that I wanted to learn about forging? Well, yeah, I figured that was going to happen in this book, and boy, does it ever. So we've learned about forging, and it's happening to the Fool. It's pretty scary stuff. But then, chapter 23, we've got Fitz going into the Skill River. And we've got Nettle, and we've got Thick, and we've got Chade. It's just like a skill fest. And the way Hobb has described this, it's like death, isn't it? It's like heaven. First of all, we get a description of the dragon looking for death, because dragons can't survive anymore in the world. So he goes to Aslovyal, basically to die, but life finds a way. I think that's the quote from the book, life clings on. So he didn't die. And then Fitz goes into him, jumps in with his skill and his wit. We get that explanation of being lost in the skill, you know, which is when you get to feel that harmony, that connection, that sense of joy, source, no longer being tied down to a single life. You become life. And it's just so beautifully described. But he clings on. He clings on through the coterie, through his skill coterie. So it's a beautiful, beautiful scene, and I'm actually listening to it again because I want to take it in and listen to it at 1x. Listen to that scene properly, because it's just, yeah, it's the best. Can't wait to see what happens next. Right, my last clip was chapter 23, so I left it with about 300 pages to go, and I finished it, well, 2 weeks ago. So I've got to do some remembering here. So, yeah, vibes, feelings, emotions, these are things that Hobb is very good at stirring up in the reader. And boy, does she do it well with this book. So, when they're in Aslovyal, and Burrick appears, as if by magic, like the shopkeeper from Mr. Ben.
Suddenly, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared.
He shows up, which I found a bit weird, and then we get scenes of the Fool in the Pale... What's her name? The Pale Lady? The Pale Woman. The Pale Woman in her lair, slowly being forged. So the Pale Woman's got a stone dragon, and it's, you know, the same kind of deal that we had at the end of the Farseer trilogy when Verity was putting himself into the dragon, as was the fool into Girl on a Dragon. So that's happening. Fool's getting sucked into this dragon by the Pale Woman, which basically means death, as he foretold, as he prophesied. So it's coming to pass. And then, long story short, we end up with a big battle scene where the stone dragon awakens, Icefire is freed from his icy lair, and Tintaglia shows up. So we've got 2 real dragons and a stone dragon. We've got a big battle scene. The dragons start fighting, and that's one of the things I found weird, is that 2 real dragons against a stone dragon, which isn't real, and yet the battle was fraught. How does that come to be? So stone dragons are as powerful as real dragons? Fair enough, Icefire's been under the ice for however long, so he's in a weakened state, but it goes on a bit. Then we get the scene with, what's his name? Burrick's son, Swift, with his bow and arrow, standing firm in front of the stone dragon. And he fires his arrow true, which seemingly was an arrow that he was given by the fool. So does that mean it's made of wizard wood? I'm not sure that was made clear. I think it was just hinted at. But it flies true and pierces the stone dragon in the eye and defeats the stone dragon, but not before it's had a go at Burrick. And Burrick's been knocked flying by the stone dragon, and yeah, it's quite predictable. You know, the way that Burrick is taken out of the story, it feels to me like he got short shrift, like Hobb was just including it as a way of dealing with Burrick to clear the way for Fitz and Molly. Yeah, so it felt a little bit too tidy. But it is what it is. I mean, we're not even there as readers when Burrick dies. It happens when they're on their way back on the ship while we're in a different POV. So it only gets reported on later on that Burrick died during his journey back. But I mean, it was quite predictable. The biggest emotional moment for me was before that, when I thought Burrick was going to die in that battle scene. It was building up into something that could have been spectacular. With Swift and his arrow, that was a really nice moment. It was well done, but the way Burrick was cast aside, I don't know. I wasn't into that. Anyway, that's really the story. It's done at this point. All is well. We get the epilogue style scenes after the big battle. We've got Dutiful and the Narcheska coming together. Political union, a union of love as well, which is, you know, is a nice little twist. Because they didn't start out really with great feelings for one another. So that's a good, well, is it a good ending? Yeah, I suppose so. But then we get Molly and Fitz getting back together again. It's like, I know that Ray wasn't happy with this. I was at first, but now having had some time to ponder it just seems a little too neat and tidy. Now, I don't know, obviously, what Hobb has got planned for the final trilogy. Maybe this will have repercussions. But for Fitz just to walk into Molly's life, to become a surrogate father to Burrick's and Molly's kids, and to Nettle, I don't know, it just seems a little too neat and tidy. Which, I suppose in some ways is satisfying if you've been following Molly and Fitz's relationship. Well, you will have been if you've got this far, right from the beginning of Assassin's Apprentice. Little Molly Nosebleed and Fitz running about Buckkeep Town, getting up to hijinks, you know. To end up as they have, especially when we know how Fitz has been yearning after her all through all of the books since he had to go on his quest. And would it be Royal Assassin? or would it be Assassin's Quest probably, when he heads off and he has to kid on he's dead and make way for Burrick, and then he kind of spies on them, which I found a little creepy. You know, skill dreaming, spying on them from, you know, without consent. I found that a bit weird. But that's, I suppose, how you deal with a first-person point of view narrative. If you want us to learn about what's going on with other characters who are not Fitz, there has to be some kind of technical device for doing that, and that's how Hobb did it with dreams and skill walking. So, yeah. Anyway, fantastic series. Thoroughly enjoyed it, as much as I expected and more. The first book I found a little weak, but that was, I think, just because of new characters coming in, which I struggled with a wee bit, particularly the whole scene with, not with Dutiful, but what's his name, Civil Brazinga. That whole scene when the Fool and Fitz have to go and rescue Dutiful, but we end up going by way of the Brazinga's place. I don't know, I didn't enjoy that so much, and I'm not quite sure what Civil's role is now in the story. Does he even have a role? He's got the wit, so I suppose. Anyway, Golden Fool, loved it, absolutely loved it, especially when we learn that the Fool is also Amber from Life Ship Traders. That moment, I think that was the biggest moment for me in the whole series. It was just like, I was driving at the time and I was like, oh my god, I wanted to peep the horn and shout out the window, and then I sent a quick audio message to Mayor, Lady Mayor Reeds, because I know that she's read them all, and I was like, I need to talk to someone about this. This is such a big reveal. So I loved that moment, and you know, I would have liked a little bit more of bringing the Life Ship Traders in, but Hobb did a good job with that. You know, we got to meet Selden again. We got Tintaglia's voice through Selden at the big conference, you know, and we had, I can't remember the character's name, starts with a J, the one who, from Life Ships, from Buckkeep, that revealed who Amber was, that it was the Fool. Anyway, great scene, absolutely brilliantly done. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Rainwild Chronicles. I'm going to take a little break, so is Ray. We're both taking a break, a Hobb break, because, you know, our hearts are in pieces. So, yeah, but I'm looking forward to getting into that. And, you know, I know there are going to be some new characters and stuff as we go back up the Rainwild River, and there'll be more Elderling cities and dragons that come out their cocoons not in a great state. I've read the blurb, so I know what we're getting into, and I'm looking forward to it. But particularly, I'm looking forward to the last trilogy when we come back to these characters again, because these characters are just the best. So, if you've read Fool's Fate, let me know down below how you liked it. Were you happy with Molly and Fitz getting back together again? That's something that would be a good poll. So, yes or no, Molly and Fitz, what do you reckon? Thanks for watching. See you again.